Today's lesson is lesson 86, and it is multiplying a fraction by a whole number. And you are going to find that this is extremely easy, so long as you are multiplying carefully. You'll understand why in just a minute. Now let's start off with the bare bones basic. If I write the number 5, I want you to tell me, how would I turn that into a fraction? Now at this point, you shouldn't even have to think about it. You should say right away, oh, well, Mrs. Gomes, of course, that's easy. You put the number over 1. So if I say, how do you turn 7 into a fraction? Write it down, and you should have written 7 over 1. How do you turn 24 into a fraction? And again, without even a thought, you should say 24 over 1. To turn a whole number into a fraction, all you do is put it over 1. Now, if you can remember that, we're halfway done with today's lesson. The next thing that you have to remember is when you see the word of, what does that represent? And hopefully you said that means multiply. So if I had 1/3 of 1/2, you would know automatically that could be written as 1/3 times 1/2. So hopefully, again, those two things, turning a whole number into a fraction, which is what we did up here, and knowing what to do when you see the of, which is what we did down here. Of means multiply, turn a whole number into a fraction by putting it over 1. And that, my dear students, is basically all we have to do today. Let's take a look at it in an actual math problem. Now we're going to do several of the examples together just because we've done things like this before. I just want you to get a little more practice with them. The book says, what is 1/3 of 4 equal? Well, I would hope that right away on your paper, you wouldn't even need to write that part. You could go ahead and write 1/3 times 4 over 1. And you'd ask yourself, how did you know it was 4 over 1? Because 4 is a whole number, you put it over a 1, and then you have a fraction. Now, if you say, remember multiplication, you multiply across the top, and then you multiply across the bottom. Now, am I done? I hope you said, no, you are not done, Mrs. Gomes, because you have an improper fraction. So you would then know, 3 goes into 4, approximately how many times? The answer is 1, and there is 1 left over, and I put it over my same denominator. Now, do you see? First thing you had to know is how to go from a whole number into a fraction. The second thing, in this case, it gave you the multiplication sign, but you have to know that that means if you see it with an of, you know what to do. The next thing you had to make sure you remembered is that you multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. And then the third thing to remember is when you have an improper fraction, it's actually a division problem, which is 4 divided by 3, and we divide it and we come up with 1 1/3. So again, just a bunch of little tiny steps that we've already done before. Now you put them into a full math problem. So let's do another one. They say 3/5 times 2. Well, you wouldn't actually need to write that on in your problem if you saw that in a book. You could automatically write 3/5 times 2 over 1. That's turning your 2 into a fraction. Now the next step is multiply across the top and multiply across the bottom. Your second step is to know that that is an improper fraction, so you can't leave it that way. You would either have to divide it, you can do it in your head, or you can write it out. 5 goes into 6 once with 1 left over, and I put it over 5. So, whoops. Pencil got away from me, so let me erase that, get it taken care of. Maybe. Now we're just going to leave it since we're going on to the next page anyway. But hopefully you ended up with the same amount. So again, remember, turn your whole number into a fraction. Multiply straight across the top, straight across the bottom. When you come up with an improper fraction, don't forget to convert it into a mixed number from your improper fraction. That's it. Let's do a couple when they give them to you with words. Reading directly from the book, I want you to go ahead and write the problem down. It says, what number is 1/5 of 4? Again, it's what number is 1/5 of 4? Now you go ahead and write it down. I'll give you a moment. Then I'm going to write it, and you make sure you have the same thing I have. It asks for what is 1/5 of 4. Now you may have skipped that step and gone right to 1/5 times 4 over 1. So if you did it this first way, that's fine. Just make sure you convert it so that you've made your whole number a fraction. Next step, 1 times 4 is 4. 5 times 1 is 5. Now the last step is, I look at it and say, is that an improper fraction that I need to convert? Well, no, because the bigger number's on the bottom. Yay, we're good, we're done. And so that is our correct answer. Again, remembering that the of was our multiplication sign. Let's try one more. It says, what is 2/3 of 5? What is 2/3 of 5? Go ahead and write it down. I'll wait for you. What is 2/3 of 5? Now, you may have written it 2/3 of 5, or you may have jumped right ahead and done the 2/3 of 5 over 1. Then our next step is, first step was knowing that the of was multiplication and knowing to change our whole number into a fraction. Second step, we multiply across the top and we get 10. We multiply across the bottom and we get 3. Then we look at it and we say, is that an improper fraction? And hopefully you said to yourself, yes, it is. So what are you going to do about it? That would not be the correct answer. You would do 10 divided by 3. You don't have to write out the division problem, but I'd rather you do it if you think you might make a mistake. 3 goes into 10 3 times with 1 left over, and we place it over a 3 because that's what our denominator was, and that's our final answer. So again, the steps are very easy. Remember, of is multiplication. Remember to turn a whole number into a fraction, you put it over 1. Remember, when you multiply fractions, you go straight across the top and straight across the bottom. And finally, remember if it is an improper fraction to convert it to a mixed number. And that is our lesson for today. So we'll practice a little bit more with it tomorrow, but hopefully you've got it. If you have any questions, be sure that you make a note so that you can ask it in class tomorrow. Have a great night.